For a game this hyped, Micah Parsons returning to Dallas in a showdown on Sunday Night Football, neither team got quite what it wanted. What we got instead was a wild back-and-forth shootout that checked every box. Momentum swings, special teams chaos, big plays, defensive breakdowns, last-second drama, and ultimately, a 40-40 tie. It's an unsatisfying result in a league built on winners and losers, but it also tells you a lot about where these two teams are right now and which edges they still need to shave. Let's start with the storyline everyone came to see, Micah Parsons. The trade narrative, Parsons to Green Bay, Kenny Clark and picks to Dallas, was supposed to be the offseason's seismic move. Parsons didn't disappoint as a live wire on third and long and in obvious pass rush moments. He pressured Prescott, drew attention, and changed blocking assignments. More importantly for Green Bay, Parsons' mere presence opened lanes for others. Rashan Gary, Devonte Wyatt, and the interior tackles got easier matchups because Parsons demanded double teams and extra slide protection from Dallas. That's the kind of ripple effect teams pay big money for. But Parsons alone didn't win the game. This was very much an event-level performance in which both quarterbacks answered one another punch for punch. Jordan Love and Dak Prescott delivered a dual performance to remember. Love looked sharp in the pocket at times. He threaded throws to Romeo Doubs all night long, including 3 touchdown connections that kept Green Bay on the scoreboard and the Packers in the game when the defense was being tested. Doubs was the star on Green Bay's side, finishing with a night to remember and providing Love with a consistent downfield threat. On the other sideline, Dak Prescott looked every bit the veteran playmaker the Cowboys expected when they paid him, decisive, accurate, and willing to put the team on his back. George Pickens rewarded that trust with multiple touchdowns and clutch plays late in the game, keeping Dallas in striking range. The tempo of the game was wild. Green Bay opened fast, 2 early touchdowns, and a look that briefly suggested this could be one-sided. Then Dallas answered with a sustained comeback that really began thanks to a key turnover, James Houston's strip sack on Love late in the first half that flipped momentum and led directly to a Cowboys touchdown. What this game reinforced is an uncomfortable truth for both teams. Neither defense can be counted on to consistently shut opponents down for 4 quarters. The Packers had one of the better run defenses through 3 weeks, but Prescott carved them up when the Cowboys needed to move the chains. Conversely, Dallas's defense, which has had its own questions, giving up long drives and failing to close in the fourth, suggested more work ahead. Special teams, as they so often do in tight games, played a wildly consequential role. Early on, Green Bay's second extra point attempt was blocked and returned for 2 points by Dallas, an odd score that created a shift in momentum and, for a time, probably saved the Cowboys from a shutout narrative. Later, as regulation wound down, special teams and situational execution put the Packers within range for Brandon McManus's long attempt. He knocked down the 53-yarder as regulation expired to send the game to overtime, and he later connected on the field goal that sealed the 40-40 tie as the clock ran out in OT. If there's one player who left Arlington largely content, it's McManus, a 53-yard game-tying boot and an overtime field goal to ensure the Packers left without a loss. Coaching and communication loom large in the aftermath. Matt LaFleur's post-game comments were striking. The offense was way too slow, and there were communication breakdowns in the 2-minute operation. That's not subtle. When your coach publicly points to internal miscommunication on late-game management, it's an admission that execution, not schematic design, cost you an opportunity. LaFleur singled out the chain of command, himself to Jordan Love, and Love to the huddle. That's a process problem you can fix in practice, but it's the kind of thing that, if repeated, turns ties into losses. On the Cowboys side, questions remain about defensive discipline. They stuffed Green Bay early in stretches, but the sudden ability of the Packers to move the ball in quick, explosive bursts, especially when Love found Doubs, showed schematic vulnerabilities that will be exploited by high-octane offenses. Speaking of big plays, Green Bay's reliance on chunk plays, several third and long completions that turned into touchdowns, was both a strength and a potential problem. When an offense is built around explosive completions, it can burn elite defenses quickly. but it also makes you inconsistent. If the shots don't connect, your possessions can be 3-and-out affairs. The Cowboys exploited that at times, converting on drive killers and creating short fields. That feast or famine dynamic is something both teams will want to temper. For the Packers, a more balanced approach that sustains longer drives, not just relying on throws of 30-plus yards, will be critical as the schedule tightens. For Dallas, they need to shore up interior gap control so Parsons and the Packers don't simply beat them with speed on the edges and mismatches over the middle. Turnovers and penalties were also pivotal. James Houston's strip sack was the kind of high-impact defensive play that flips games. Conversely, Green Bay's penalties and hesitation late allowed Dallas to keep drives alive and shift the scoreboard in their favor. The sequence late in the fourth quarter, Dallas engineering a lightning-quick 52-yard drive to retake the lead, exposed a Packers unit that, for all its pass rush talent, still needs to learn to close coverage and force more 3-and-outs. What does this tie mean in the bigger picture? For the Packers, walking away with a tie on the road against a division rival is far from a catastrophe. It keeps them unbeaten in the standings and gives Jordan Love more narrative ammunition. He led multiple game-winning drives and made the throws when it mattered. For the Cowboys, a tie at home stings worse. They left points on the board early and nearly snatched victory despite a slow start. The tie's real impact will be felt in a season where every game matters for seeding and playoff positioning. A tie can be a half win or a half loss, depending on how a team finishes the season. The difference will be whether either club uses tonight's lessons to clean up late-game execution. What should we watch next? For Green Bay, tighten the 2-minute drill and diversify the offense so Love can win without only relying on Dew's big plays. Refine offensive communication and cut back on avoidable penalties. For Dallas, improve run fits and gap discipline, especially on interior rushes, where Parsons' presence forces opponents to adjust. The Cowboys also have to ensure their defense can sustain stops when Prescott and the offense get into rhythm. It's not enough to generate a big play here and there. Finally, the human element matters. Emotions were raw, the crowd was electric, and the players' competitive fire showed through. Micah Parsons' homecoming was intense. Dak Prescott and Jordan Love both proved they belong in the conversation. But what this game revealed most is simple. Both teams are very good, both have clear flaws, and both have time to address them before the playoff gauntlet narrows. A 40-40 tie won't settle debates, but it will force both clubs to be brutally honest about what they need to fix. In the NFL, that kind of introspection, backed by decisive coaching adjustments, is often the difference between a promising season and a championship run.